Welcome to the Sniff Spotlight Series, your one-stop shop to find out what's really going on in sniffs nationwide. I'm your host, Yitz Rubin, and this is sponsored by Renewal Rehab, the best therapy provider for sniffs nationwide. Welcome to another episode of the Sniff Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Yitz Rubin, and I'd like to thank the Renewal Rehab family for sponsoring this episode. Today, I have the privilege to be hosting the master host himself of the Nursing Home Podcast, Shmuel Septimus.
I'm excited to be here.
The Nursing Home Podcast is the go-to source for professional insights in the long-term care industry, where you can hear from leaders and experts as they share current and practical insights to help make the most of people's day that are in the field. So Shmuel, you are a nursing home administrator turned podcaster. Can you tell us a little bit about you and what made you start your podcast?
Thanks for the intro. Like you said, a nursing home administrator for a number of years. I guess I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm always looking to learn more about whatever it is that I'm doing, whatever is interesting to me. What's surprising is that even though you could Google almost anything, you get tons of information about the most abstract and weirdest information online somewhere. In the nursing home industry, although there are thousands and thousands of people who are providing the care, involved in providing the care in some capacity or another, there's very little information online available that are helpful, that are resources for people who want to learn more about the industry, if they're in the industry or even not in the industry. I love talking to people. I love interviewing people. I'm learning right now if I like to be interviewed by people, and I decided to start interviewing people. I actually started this while I was still a nursing home administrator. I would go into my office usually late afternoon when things quiet down a little bit, pull out the same trusty old mic that I'm talking on right now, and interviewing people all over the world. My privilege is I get to be the dummy in the room. So if you, as an administrator of a building, you're supposed to be the guy who knows everything until the big boss comes around and tells you everything that you're doing wrong. But as long as you're with your team, you're supposed to be the guy who knows stuff. So it's hard to keep on asking questions. But when you get to interview someone else who's a professional, you don't really need to know anything. You're just bringing that guy into the room. It's been my pleasure, my opportunity to meet many wonderful people who are leaders in this space. And I've even asked some of them who I thought were completely out of my league, why would you spend time with me? You don't know me. This is just a random guy who's talking about nursing homes, who's asking you to spend some time together. You're a busy guy. Why would you do this? So one guest actually said, this is what I live and breathe all day, every day. I talk to my employees about it. I talk to my investors about it. I talk to my family about it, whether they like it or not. If you're actually interested in what I have to say and you have any size listenership that's interested in this, no problem, knock yourself out. It's been quite a journey, and through this, I've been able to create a lot of relationships.
It's actually very interesting now that I'm thinking about it. I'm in a very good position here. You know, I have a seasoned podcaster on my show. I get to ask him advice. I've been doing this for a couple of months now. I'm only in the healthcare space for 4 months. I did this before in the patent translation space. As a guest being hosted, what would you say? How am I doing?
You're doing amazing. You actually have a flow, you have a format. The mistake I made initially was to try to copy other people's format. You know, John Lee Dumas, he has a very, very structured podcast format where he has the lightning round, this question, that question. You know exactly what you're expecting. You know exactly how long the episode's going to take. The guest has a slot of 15 to 24 seconds. Maybe I'm exaggerating slightly. Some people like that, some people don't. I tried that myself, and I felt that in the conversations that I was having, I felt like it restricted creativity, and it was forcing us to fit into these boxes when the conversation didn't go there. So I changed up the way I do it completely, is that I give the guest 1 or 2, maybe 3 topics to talk about, and we start in a loose framework. If each topic gets exhausted, we go on to the next and we keep it moving. If the first topic is amazing, we kind of just go with the flow. I think you're finding a healthy medium. It's something that you're learning as you do it. The more you do it, obviously, you know, the more you discover your unique style. So it's your personality that's important.
Right. Yeah. Rena Watts has been telling me that. She's the producer here. She has a lot of experience. She says I'm too stiff, so I'm trying to loosen up a little.
Funny story. I had someone on the podcast recently who does laughter yoga for seniors. And because of COVID, he's now doing it remotely. Doesn't even charge for it. I think he should. But either way, we spoke about laughter yoga, something I know nothing about, obviously. Something I'm certainly not comfortable doing. And then at the end, he's like, okay, you know, I always ask the guests at the end, in case we forgot something, give them opportunity, like either if they want another pitch or another nugget they want to share with the listeners, whatever. So, you know, any last thing before we let you go? He's like, yeah, let's try some laughter yoga right now. I was like, yeah, I don't think so. But I wasn't really given much of a choice. I can't say I was the best participant, but at least you're able to see his version. If you go back, you can see the video. I posted just that part of the video of him asking me and me like, yikes, what am I going to do here? But either way, sometimes we do some interesting stuff.
You have a lot of experience being an administrator. Usually administrators go into, more of the operator owner roles. What made you shift to become a podcaster marketing over that other direction?
I've always noticed in my role as an administrator that there's a certain part of operations that gets somewhat ignored. Frustrated working with some of the marketing companies that the operators were working with that were extremely outdated, old-fashioned, and way too expensive. So there were companies that were spending money on TV ads, on billboards, print ads, all the things that really are very expensive, could fit into a budget of a larger company, if you have a larger budget, that many times not effective. And it's not just that they're not effective, because some of these tools can be powerful if you can afford it, but it's also not even focusing so much on where exactly is the decision maker, which decision maker are we targeting, where do they go for information, and what's the best and most affordable and most effective way to get in front of them. I was working at a point where we had no website, we had no Google page. We were able to claim our Google page. We were able to create a website just based on that. We were able to create content on our Google page just based on that. And we actually admitted people. We increased our census directly from there. Because this is something that I am interested in, I would ask people, and they come in a very unsophisticated way. The stretchers pulling in, and they come into the facility. They're doing the sign-in process to ask them how they made the decision. I asked them myself, why did you choose this facility? Sometimes it was we were handed 3 brochures. We were told the ambulance is on the way to bring you to the nursing home. Choose one of them and choose this one, which they're not supposed to do, but they do. But when someone says, oh, we Googled it and we saw your reviews were amazing, or we saw some of the content on your Google page, or we went to your website, or we checked out your Facebook page, then it's a little bit more measurable. Obviously, when you move up, you do it on a higher level, you need a little bit more sophisticated tools, but the concept is the same. The goal was primarily to help healthcare facilities be successful with their digital footprint, be successful with everything they put out online, which means accomplishing goals. There's 2 main goals of what they're trying to do in any of the marketing capacities, 2 main direct. One of them is hiring staff. The other one is getting patients. There are indirect goals is what's a banker going to think when they want to loan you $10 million for your next acquisition. If they're going to see nothing online, or they're going to see things that reflect negatively about what's going on, maybe a harder time to get the loan. The door is never shut, by the way. You want to know why I didn't choose that other way? I'm not going to be an astronaut. I'm probably never going to be a celebrity. I'm not going to be a movie actor, but it is possible to go in operations. So that door is not closed. But marketing is something I happen to enjoy very much. It's more than marketing. It's communication. My very first job in the nursing home world, I had 0 business experience, and they put me in the business office manager role. Mind you, I was never on a payroll. I didn't really understand what payroll was yet. I was not getting paid. The corporate office was being structured. We were kind of like setting up Google Docs and just trying to create systems while running the business and just connecting all the dots. And for me, that was always the most exciting part. For a while, my role was the director of special projects. They didn't really have a good name for me because I was just the guy who connected everybody. So, marketing really is that. You're connecting the one who needs this service or product with the one who's providing it, and you're figuring out the best way to do that.
We had spoken in the past. You had mentioned to me with regards to the regulations was a big challenge. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
I'll answer with a story. I came in very naive, thinking that the Department of Public Health and the operators are on the same side of the table. I don't think I told you this before. And I really believe that police officers are not bad people. Their job is to enforce the laws. So the police officers in the healthcare space, the Department of Public Health, they also care genuinely about the best interests. They want to facilitate the best care. Some people do that by providing the care. Some people do that by ensuring that others provide the care. Maybe different personalities, different backgrounds, whatever it is that pulls people to different sides of it. But at the end of the day, we should be on the same team. My naive notion that this was the case was shattered on one of my first annual surveys. We came into a room where there was a resident, unfortunately, who lost both arms and both legs. We were walking in with the surveyor who was marking off every little scratch, every little crack that might have been anywhere in the wall, in the door, any scuff mark, and writing them up as deficiencies, even though if you've ever been to a nursing home, for anyone who's been inside such a setting, there's wheelchairs every single day. There's beds moving around. It's impossible to keep it perfect no matter what your budget is. So you have to have a maintenance plan where every month you go around, you do a certain part of the building, but it's never going to be perfect. It was just very unrealistic. We were getting a little frustrated. But what really brought it to a head was we walked into this resident's room. So first of all, no knocking, big no-no. This is their home. It's supposed to be a home-like environment. Without acknowledging the patient, continues marking different things on the wall and the door and whatever, but then notices that the patient has a catheter bag, which is hanging off the side of the bed. Right away, without talking to the resident at all, he starts yelling at us. This is a dignity issue. It's an infection control issue. He was getting all upset. Now, the resident was very intelligent, interjected and said, excuse me, this is actually my personal preference. This is how I want it. It is care planned. We're aware of the infection control issue, and this is the washing schedule, and you could go check in the notes, and you'll see that's exactly what it is. And without missing a beat, the surveyor started yelling at the top of his lungs at this resident. Who are you? What do you think this is? You have no idea what you're talking about. Why are you getting involved in the conversation? That was like the moment of truth. I realized that we're not on the same page. This person had total, complete disregard. I was traumatized. I went back to my preceptor. I said, how is it possible to have such a person? What do I do? So we filed an official complaint with the Department of Public Health. I found out afterwards that this person has complaints from every single survey, and he's left in place to kind of balance out. Now, just to be clear, there are many surveyors that are wonderful people, but it's a realization, it is cat and mouse. What really is going on is not really the goal of a survey, unfortunately. Everyone says you want to be survey ready every single day, and then you're not nervous when survey comes in. I'd like to say that, my last building, survey came, was a regular day. Nobody was nervous because we did do a good job every day. And we weren't hiding anything. So it was really not so stressful. That's how you always want it to be. The goal is to put this out in the open. There's two sides to every story. But I think knowing the story is important. We did interview a former surveyor on the podcast to talk about these very challenges. And it was a fascinating conversation of just being open as to what is there. Put it this way, most operators, hopefully, and most surveyors are trying to do the right thing most of the time. There are bad players on every team. If we're really here for the residents, if you see a problem, let's fix the problem immediately.
It sounds like you're doing very good things. Shmuel, the media recently has been portraying the nursing home space, elderly care, probably not in the best light. The Nursing Home Podcast is really coming to change that and give it more of a positive twist. Can you give us a rundown about the media and what you think of it?
Good news doesn't sell, right? News by definition is bad news. If you're going to say that nursing home care has improved dramatically in the United States over the last 5 years, in this case, people are not really that interested. But if you write a bombshell headline that dozens of body bags were secretly delivered to a certain COVID-rattled nursing home, people are, oh my gosh, nursing homes are horrible. Let's not send mom to a nursing home. And it's not a knock on the media. It's an important service. But besides for the fact that the people who create media all have opinions because they're human beings, as much as they may try to separate it, that's a challenge. But media by definition is sharing negative things that are going on in the world. If you talk about the people who actually provide the care in the nursing homes, these are some of the most caring and selfless human beings on the planet. So yes, one of the reasons why we started the Nursing Home Podcast is to try to even out the score a little bit. I'm really hoping that others will see what we're doing here and start doing what they're doing. And really, truth is what you're doing with the Sniff Spotlight series. And you're bringing out, the heroes. I know that term is abused because everybody's a hero, but there's real truth to this. These people were heroes before COVID. These were the people who walked for 5 or 10 miles in the snow for the last 40 years to their second 8-hour shift, consecutive 8-hour shift, without any fanfare, without getting paid any money, and with getting yelled at for coming late. These are people who have done this quietly and will continue to do this quietly. The goal really is for others to create media. The reason why it's important specifically of sharing it, we want to do it on a high level. We want anyone who's interested in learning about this industry, it should be available to them. Good news doesn't sell. It's a fact. But this is critical information that people need to have. But someone wants to know what's a nursing home all about. It's an average guy in the street who never had a family member in a nursing home, maybe never walked into one. What's a nursing home? Oh, they abuse the residents. There's not enough food. They're just going to start spewing whatever comes when they Google in their brain memory, whatever stories they ever heard or saw. That's what they're going to do. The op-ed piece about how nursing home care has been improving is not going to make it. I saw on someone's LinkedIn banner, they wrote, that the way a society treats their elders is a reflection of the entire society. So if you look at nursing homes and compare it to NICU wards, the rooms there are gorgeous, stunning, top of the line, any equipment you could ever imagine. And then go to a chaotic nursing home anywhere in the country at 2 o'clock in the morning with one nurse, sometimes, 30, 40 patients because the other one called out late. She's on a double with one aide, and they're literally like putting out fires, going from person to person, trying to keep everybody alive until the morning when more people come, which is typical and which is a challenge. And this exists in every home everywhere pretty much. The ugly truth, whether we want to admit it or not, is how does our society really look at somebody who's 77 years old, living in a nursing home, not producing any income? Do we really value that person's life as much as a 7-day-old baby? I'll leave it at that.
That's powerful. It's so important for society to understand the value of the elderly and what they bring to the table, what they're carrying.
I'll tell you the other button that you're pushing right now is that I hate when people say the residents, the seniors, those people are us a few years down the line. They're not different people. So do we want in 30, 40, 50, 80 years, whatever it is, when we're in that situation and we may need care and we don't want others looking at us as like almost subhuman or a subcategory. There's like the regular society and then people who are done. There are other countries where they have higher populations, but the percentage of residents is dramatically decreased because they keep their loved ones with them. They provide for them. They stay with the families. And that's not always the right decision. Sometimes they do need to be in an institutionalized setting. But there is something to be said about what we really think of our seniors. After a person passes to the next world, we can all easily see how amazing they were because the competition is over. Unfortunately, many times that's how we look at seniors. They're done. They're retired. Yeah, they're amazing. We love them. Oh, we should pay for them? That's a whole different conversation. We should give compensation to make operators, to attract talented operators so they could really provide the care that they deserve. No, that's something else. Let's save the whales instead.
Yeah, this is a very, very interesting topic. I mean, it's also hard, for someone like myself, I don't have so much exposure, someone who's never been exposed and has nothing to do with the nursing home industry. How can they relate a little bit better and realize like, hey, this is everyone's issue?
It's a good question. I don't know if there's a simple answer. What I could tell you is that in every facility that I was managing, I would make it a point, or my wife would make it a point, or maybe it was just they had nowhere else to go, to bring my children to the facility. And they're going to see a lot of things that they don't usually see. They're going to come with me to the nurse's station, and they're going to see the guy who only has one leg. It took a few days to try to explain that to some of them. If prepped properly, which I hope we've done, and we explain to them that we're fortunate that where we are right now, we don't have these problems. These people are not any worse than we are, and they have these challenges. We have an opportunity to try to help them with it. So really, exposure goes a very long way. I was fortunate that when my grandfather was living through this period, I was then studying in Israel, and I got to spend many, many weekends with him, helping him, caring for him to whatever extent that I could. It definitely helped. When it's personal, it helps tremendously.
Shmuel, this was a very powerful session. I feel like I should pay you for therapy. But thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
In closing, I just wanted to say that if whoever's listening to this, whoever's watching this, next time you see something on the news that says something horrific about those caring for seniors, take it with a grain of salt, or better yet, take it with a box of salt, and know that that might not be the whole story.
All right, let's do the yoga therapy.
Pick your hands up high over your head. Take a deep breath in. And then on the way out, you let out a breath with a bull, just laugh your whole way down.
Is that good?
Amazing. I'll put you in touch with him.
I feel better, actually.
Well, thank you very much for bringing me on the SIF Spotlight series. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Shmuel. I really appreciate that you took the time. I'm looking forward to see more of the nursing home podcast shows.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing this tremendously important part of senior care. The SNF Spotlight series highlights healthcare heroes and thought leaders in the skilled nursing community. We're building awareness, trust, and shining the light on SNFs. So stay tuned. Remember to like, comment, and share.